Hi there guys, I'm Owen and I'm with John McCann, who's been spending some time with the Moto G and is going to tell us all about it. So John.
Well, the Moto G was really surprising when it came out. Everyone was like, oh, it's sort of a boring mid-range phone. No one really thought much of it. But then Motorola released a price for it, and that really sort of blew everyone away. £135 it starts at, and for the spec list that it's rocking, it's a really good price. So it immediately got people to perk up, take notice, and you know, Motorola is sort of back. It may not be the big flagship handset that you'd expect from a company on a comeback, but this is something which could be just as impactful. The specs are really good. A quad-core processor. Yes, it is the Snapdragon 400 1.2 GHz, which isn't their sort of top line quad-core, but you know, that's quad-core nonetheless at such a low price. You get a gig of RAM in there as well. So you know, there's more than enough power for a handset which is sort of a third of the price than a lot of its spec rivals. You've also got a Adreno GPU, and while it's also not the top one in the range, it's still going to be good enough for your casual gamers out there. Android 4.3 vanilla is on there, so for anyone who loves Android but hates the overlays, then that's another great selling point for the Moto G. Also, Motorola's guaranteed an Android 4.4 KitKat update by the end of January 2014, so that's even more good news.
Good stuff. Yeah, so as you mentioned, a lot of people are actually asking us about how good a gaming handset it makes. Personally, I found the screen was slightly unresponsive. Maybe that's down to my own dexterity in Temple Run, but yeah, it wasn't quite as nippy as, you know, some of the kind of high spec handsets out there. But then again, it's not a high spec handset. It's a very mid-range phone. Maybe people shouldn't go in expecting something to blow them away. Exactly.
It's never going to be the sort of gaming machine that an HTC One or an LG G2 could be. But at the end of the day, it still can run the majority of the games pretty well. That quad-core processor is one of Qualcomm's lower ones, so yeah, it hasn't got as much grunt at the end of the day, and the really complex games may struggle just a little bit to sort of fully process and everything, and there may be a bit of sluggish behaviour, but you know, for most of your games you shouldn't really have a problem. The 720p screen is actually bigger at 4.5 inches than the iPhone 5S, and also got a better pixel density as well. So if you want a screen which is better than an iPhone, and for what, a third, a fourth, a fifth of the cost, then the Moto G is a winner.
And we actually ran some benchmarking tests on, so we've got the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini here, the HTC One Mini, which are kind of maybe the closest rivals in terms of specs, not necessarily price, because obviously these two are quite highly priced, but the Moto G we actually found came second between these. The Samsung Galaxy S4 had the highest benchmark score, followed by the Moto G, followed by the HTC One Mini. So that might be interesting to people. I mean, you've got to bear in mind this is of course a dual-core processor, as is this one. I mean, but, you know, it's still got a fair chunk of power behind it.
Yeah, I mean, benchmarking results are very sort of subjective, and obviously, you know, a benchmarking test doesn't relate to real world usage, and all three phones here will work perfectly well. They're all smooth. The overlays on the Samsung and the HTC offer something different. It might not be to everyone's taste, but for other people they're a good enhancement, and they make things cleaner, easier, and a bit more fluid. But yeah, it just shows that the Moto G is really up there with these sort of your mid to high end phones, but at a price which is really low.
Sure. And in terms of their rivals as well, again, you can see this probably not quite as a high build quality as these two, but then again, it's not trying to be, is it? It's very much got its place in the market. It knows what it's trying to appeal to, what market it's trying to appeal to. It's not trying to pull any punches above its weight, really.
For sure. I mean, when it comes to the Moto G, you're always going to look back at its price, you know, and for the price, it's a well-built, solid handset. Yes, it's all plastic, but it is all very solid. It doesn't really bend or flex. If you drop it, it doesn't feel like it's going to smash into a million pieces, but, you know, we can't guarantee that it won't, so don't. Also, the removable back, so you can change up the colour, sort of very Nokia 3310 style, but, you know, for the kids, they might like that, to have a few different colour options.
And in terms of day-to-day use, how do you find it? How's the battery life? That's obviously a very important one for the majority of smartphone users. How do you find it?
Sure, battery life is obviously very important, and with a relatively large screen and a 720p HD display, it's going to suck a bit of battery out of it. I mean, for a whole day general use, you should be fine from when you're waking up to when you're going to bed. You will need to charge overnight though, and that's what we've come to expect from phones these days. If they last a day, then that's pretty much acceptable, but don't expect sort of a 2 days use out of the Moto G.
Sure. I think we actually ran a battery test on this, and I think it sucked about 9% of battery in half an hour on full brightness, so that's, you know, that's kind of middle of the road, isn't it?
Middle of the road. I mean, you're unlikely to ever be on full brightness, and we'd always recommend auto brightness or just manually reducing the brightness at all costs, because that really does save you loads of battery life. The screen is your biggest pull of battery, so if you can keep resolution brightness down, then you'll be more than happy.
So let's talk about the camera. 5 megapixels on the back, 1.3 on the front. How does it fare in actual testing?
Well, 5 megapixel camera, you may be a little disappointed, but once again, look at the price. That's par for a budget handset. Unfortunately, we found it wasn't the best. It was quite blurry. The pictures were quite pixelated. It really struggled to sort of focus. Motorola has really stripped down the camera app to make it what it says easier and really minimalistic, so there's hardly any options on screen. The whole screen is a shutter button, but it really does seem to struggle. We'd like to see sort of a tap to focus and autofocus. There is sort of a very basic autofocus and exposure setting in one, but it's not overly great. It is one of the weaker areas of the phone, the camera, so if you're really looking for a handset which has got a decent camera, then maybe this isn't for you. But once again, as we've said, the price, you can't really knock it that much, and it, you know, for the odd profile picture, the odd selfie, it's absolutely fine.
Alright then, so summarise for us, who would this phone be ideal for and what are your final thoughts?
Right, anyone looking for a smartphone but doesn't want to spend loads of money, you know, if you're looking for the smartphone for your child or your first smartphone, or you know, you're just a bit low on money but you need a new phone, this is a great option. It's got loads of strong features, the screen is brilliant, the processor behind it and the operating system and the RAM means there's more than enough power, and the future update guarantee is excellent for anyone who wants a long-term device. You know, phones usually last about 2 years, and this will easily last you 2 years without really any issue. So yeah, or even as a backup device, really, it's that cheap. You can go, right, I need a second phone maybe for emergencies. You could pick this up, sling it in a drawer, and you know, not be disappointed when you have to bring it out.